Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Want to get into how the Steelers are setting the foundation, and particularly Arthur Smith, to being a more physical offense. We'll get into that and why the new Steelers wide receiver coach is turning heads. All that here and more on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things of the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find this show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. But thank you for making us your first listen every day, because we're your team every day. All right, everyone. OTAs, at least the first week of OTAs, finished yesterday. We got a chance to talk to some more players. We got a chance to watch some more practice, and it's been interesting to continue to look at things. Now, the one thing that we've talked about as far as how this offense, all the different things that needs to work for this offense. We've talked about the quarterback. We've talked about the playbook and all the different things that need to happen there. But we've also talked a lot about how the Steelers offense has to be more physical this year. It has to be more physically dominant, not just physical as in because we already knew Najee Harris could run hard, Jaylen Warren could run hard, a couple guys could block really well, but they needed this group as a unit to be more physical. But that was something that we weren't going to be able to see much of, as far as going to work on it in OTA, because you're in football in shorts. You don't have pads, you can't hit, can't do anything like that. So as far as the question, how are they going about that? I wanted to talk to some of the Steelers, after some of the practices, as far as what's being done to head that way, and had an interesting conversation in a scrum with Troy Fautanu, the rookie offensive tackle they drafted in the first round. He's going to address a lot of things in this next clip that I'm going to play for y'all, but listen to towards the end when we start getting into what Arthur Smith's focusing on and the PowerPoint presentation that he said he presented to him and other players of the offense about how they're focusing. Here's Troy Fautanu from Steelers OTAs this week.
Troy, what's been your first experiences just working with the team now that you guys have had more time to interact with
my first impression of practice yesterday is it's a lot different from college. Just the adjustment to the speed, especially the guys on the edge, and yesterday was a rough one, but today was a little bit better. That's what I'm hearing a lot from the guys, just find something to get better at, and I emphasized that today and felt like I did. So I'm learning a lot from these guys, especially Dan, Broderick, just everybody in the room, Isaac as well. They're all kind of, taking me under their wing and helping me out, so Pittsburgh. So
you said those older guys took you under their wing. What's the number one thing that you've learned from them about how they grow?
What was that? Oh, sorry about it. Just the process, just trusting it. Yesterday I was very frustrated after yesterday's practice. A lot that I felt I could have done better, but, them telling me just trust the process, that every day is going to get better if you just continue to work. So that was the biggest thing for sure.
For some guys who play tackle, play one side or the other. Some guys can go back and forth. Why do you find it agreeable that you're able to do either side?
I wouldn't say it's the easiest. I wouldn't say it's hard, but it's for sure different. You know what I mean? But for me, man, it's just another opportunity. Like for me, it's whatever the position coach wants me to play, I'm going to play it. I'm not going to argue against him. He knows a lot more than I do. What do I know telling him what side I'm going to play? If he thinks I can play right, then I can play right. So.
Is it a comfort thing or a right-handed, left-handed thing?
I'm comfortable playing left. I played it my whole life pretty much. But switching to right, it's getting a little bit easier every day, doing it. It's a lot different from, last week where we're just going against air. You know what I mean? I'm just taking my footwork now. Now I got guys in front of me. So, but still, I'm just constantly working on it every single day, and hopefully I get better at it.
Who closest to the team as far as helping you understand the switch? You said Isaac or Broderick.
Everybody. I was just out there talking to Dan for like 30 minutes, and he's just explaining me not only technique stuff but mindset stuff, like when you're going against certain DNs and just playing football, man. These guys are, they're very helpful. They're not. I still got to do, some rookie things, by filling up the refrigerator and stuff like that. But they're not just like chucking me aside and telling me to figure out for yourself. These guys have all, great advice because they've been in the league for a while. And all the guys in here, man, they're awesome.
What good a chance you're an offensive lineman trying to figure out how to push yourself. Like, this team's got new quarterbacks too. Like,
yeah, I mean, me and Russ got a little connection, man. He was up in the Pacific Northwest for a little bit. He just told me he just sold his house, and I looked up on the internet. I didn't want to ask him. I looked up how much it cost. I was like, what the? But no, yeah, he's awesome. Justin's awesome. All of them are. You know, I'm just trying to figure out how they operate, how they run the offense, and hopefully just, you know, slide in seamlessly. So I'm just trying to learn as much as I can, man. You're going to hear that a lot because I'm not a finished product, man. I'm trying to get better every single day.
What did you get for the house?
What was that?
What did he get for the house?
I'll let you find out for yourself. It's crazy, though. It's crazy.
How much this team wants to run. There have been times in these early practices where, like, hey, you know, we can't hit yet, but this is going to be an emphasis.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that he did when we got here as rookies, he brought us in, everyone on offense, me, Mason, Zach, and Roman. He took us in his office and basically put up a PowerPoint of we want to be the most physical, you know, offense in the league. So that's the mindset, that's the attitude. So hopefully we try and bring that every day. We got guys like, you know, Nate Herbig, he leads the squad, and guys like him, man, he's awesome. So.
So there you have it. I wanted you to get to see all of Troy Fautanu's conversation, talking about playing from right to left and his comfort level. But if you were able to kind of hear that last part there, where he was talking about, you know, about the PowerPoint presentation, what Arthur Smith is, this is very much going to be an emphasis for the Steelers. Especially once the pads go on, like they are setting the foundation, they're working on trying to get the basics down, and it seems like there is a roadmap to being a physically dominant team, and that is very important. And again, this is something that I've talked about with Alan Saunders earlier this week. This is something we talked about all last year, especially in the offseason, since talking about what was wrong with Matt Canada's offense. And I said this long before, while everyone was talking about his playbook and everything like that, I kept saying the process to getting to the playbook, the process to understanding what the Steelers wanted to do, that was the biggest problem the Steelers had. And I think what you're starting to see are those building blocks being put in, doing the right footwork, getting to here and having these points to do these things so that the Steelers, when it's time to actually put the pads on and they need to start proving, they need to start, you know, growing with how they can be physical and getting that part done in practice in August at Latrobe. That's where I think you're going to see the Steelers take a step forward by being better in that respect. And if they do that, I think that goes a long way to actually making this offense be the identity that we've been talking about, the physically dominant team that sets a different kind of tone. And if it does that, I think it puts the Steelers in a different realm of a football team. And like, you know, you'll go back to last year and see what the Detroit Lions did with their offense when they started to just be able to be more physical up front. And they were able to control things and they played good defense. The Steelers got a better defense, and if their offense can hum like that, if their offensive line can be dominant, if Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren can be a 1-2 punch, that's going to be huge. And if Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields turn out well with George Pickens and other guys stepping up, this could be an offense that does get the job done, but it does need other guys to adjust with this and also bring their physicality. I want to get to more guys like that, including Jaylen Warren, who I talked with in the locker room as well this week at Steelers OTAs. We'll do that in a minute here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings the winning trophy home, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts that you need at the prices that you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue with our Friday episode here as we go over more things we've been learning at Steelers OTAs, and especially on the physicality front. Now, we haven't gotten a chance to talk to Najee Harris. He's a busybody and all that, but we did get a chance to talk to Jaylen Warren for a bit. I thought we had a pretty good conversation earlier this week. Here was my conversation with Jaylen Warren. I asked him similar things. I even brought up Troy Fautanu talking about the PowerPoint and the things that Arthur Smith is trying to emphasize. And I thought it was interesting to hear how Jaylen Warren talked about that, as well as the things that he's been working on in this offseason. Here's Jaylen Warren.
So, Jaylen, I was talking to Troy Fautanu yesterday. He told us there was like a PowerPoint that Coach Arthur Smith has been going over about trying to make you guys a more physical team. What has been the emphasis early on for you guys to be a team like that this year?
Man, just like the little things, the way we come up to the line, the way, our plan is to make the defenses feel our intent, and I'm 100% bought into that. Like, it's just the way I love to play football, so to be a part of something like that, I'm excited.
Is it tough when, like, you guys are talking about that in May, but you can't hit nobody for like 3 more months?
Yeah, because, my favorite part of the game is the physical part, but, I can wait a couple months, get the plays down.
What have you worked on throughout this offseason, just like, either workouts or things that you wanted to improve upon for this year?
Oh, man, just like really my route running and just kind of, just the little tidbits in my game that I kind of, tend to have every once in a while, just eliminating those mental errors.
You get to work out with anybody on the team or anyone like in the NFL over the summer?
I worked out with Boston Scott,
nice.
A bunch of players from different teams.
Mm-hmm.
I was at Bomberitos for the offseason, so I saw a bunch of guys from the league.
How much have you and Najee talked about, what it might be with all these new offensive linemen that you guys have drafted and brought in?
I mean, yeah, we're, really excited about, running behind, whoever we got. We're excited about this line. Like I said, when the pads come on, that's when we really see what's up.
I can only imagine, like, you're seeing the draft, you're seeing you guys get, last year, you guys got Broderick, then you get Troy, then you get Zach right after it. So like they're saying, like, hey, we're getting you some help this year.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch the draft, you know what's up.
So there you have it, Jaylen Warren talking about a few things. And I think it's interesting to hear from Jaylen Warren on this, especially on the note of, like, he's not trying to one up, his former teammates who aren't with the team anymore, like Mason Cole or anybody who hasn't blocked well. But he is like saying, like, hey, yeah, we recognize what's going on. And I think that's a very good way to approach it from Jaylen Warren. Not that I was trying to get him to talk bad about those guys, but I get trying to be like, hey, we'll run for whoever we have to run for. But I think that you can see Jaylen Warren also talking about him, working on him being more of a receiving threat. I also expect to think that's what we're going to see a bit more of that from Najee Harris as well. But again, when I asked about, what they've been working on, he talked about the little things coming up to the line, being organized there. I think that's where the Steelers offense just has to be so much sharper this year. On top of, Russell Wilson being just a flat out better quarterback than what they've had over the past few years, whether it was Pickett or Trubisky or Old Ben or whatever, they need this group as an offense, not just the offensive line or the running backs. They need the whole offense to get to be on the same page, to take steps forward together, and to have some synchronization there. Because if they are able to hit that, I think it goes a lot further for what the offense can do. That's how the physical teams are the most physical. They hit at the same time in the right place. It's not just enough to be stronger than the next guy. It's what often helps you win those situations is by having better timing in your blocks, having better timing to figure out when to help certain teammates out. And those are things that come with time, work, and a lot of practice that you go through. But before you can officially get all of that in, you got to kind of feel out how it's going to be. You got to kind of work in football in shorts like this is, and try to address it there. And I think that's where the offensive line and the running backs, they're trying to figure it out now. But best believe when the pads go on, I think they're going to get some moments to try to take it out on the Steelers defense. But if they're able to learn, in a few months' time and get ready for the season really, really quickly on the hitting end, this could be a huge part of the Steelers team that really puts them over the top, because again, a lot of people are talking about the passing game in the NFL. A lot of defenses have been gearing up for the passing game in the NFL. And if you're a Steelers team that comes in and you're able to pass the ball a little bit, but you're able to run over these teams because they've been drafting smaller, they've been signing smaller, that's huge for what the Steelers want to do on offense. So I certainly think there's a lot of adjustments to be made. I certainly think that there's going to be more as we see and more that we hear about. But I do think that Jaylen Warren, I've said this for a while, I think him and Najee Harris need to be the plan as far as a 1-2 punch. I think that both of them complement each other very well. And I also think that moving forward, you're going to see you're gonna see more and more players like this talk about, this physicality until it's time to get to August or late July, when training camp starts, and then everyone's going to be looking to prove something. And I think that's a good environment to have. You want to have that level of competition. You want to have those guys getting after each other. Those types of things can go a long way for the Steelers. So I think that those are the type of things that, if you're looking at how you want the Steelers to play offense, and you want them to get to being physical in this dominant team, you got to put in this work now. You got to put in this foundation, and it appears the foundation is being laid for the Steelers to be able to make that move. I want to talk about some other factors here, because as much as we're talking about the run game, the pass game is still important to the Steelers. It's still going to be vital to the Steelers even. And, everyone knows about George Pickens, but everyone's wondering who's going to rise up as the number 2 or the number 3 guy. And that's where Calvin Austin is really interesting in the picture here. I want to talk about Calvin Austin and my conversation with him in the Steelers locker room right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is also brought to you by Yahoo Finance. Wouldn't it be great if you could see all of your investment and retirement accounts in one place? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. They are the number 1 finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Whether you're a seasoned investor or are looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, and that's yahoofinance.com. The number 1 financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. Back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our show today as Steelers, the first week of OTAs wrapped up at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. So let's get to a few things here. We've talked a lot about physicality. We talked to Troy Fautanu. We talked to Jaylen Warren. But I wanted to talk with someone whose game is a bit different. Not that Calvin Austin can't be physical, but he's an undersized player and he's lightning fast. And so he's a guy that, the Steelers want to get the ball to in creative situations. So I wanted to ask him what he thought of his new wide receivers coach, especially Zach Azzanni. So I don't want to, you kind of spoil the clip here, but he speaks very highly of Zach Azzanni, the receivers coach here. And I think that there's some interesting meat on the bone there to kind of pick through and see what parts of Calvin Austin is really excited about right now, because it seems like genuinely he is excited to get back out there this year and keep proving that he was more than what they thought was a 4th receiver last year. So without further ado, here's Calvin Austin in the Steelers locker room.
It seems like you've made a point a few times to be like the first guy in certain drills, make sure that I'm here to work. What have you focused on to get better for this year that can be different about your game?
A lot in my, my routes, my snap down, my efficiency in and out my breaks. I went to Houston to work with Del Fonte a lot, so I really kind of perfected it to where I wanted and feel like, especially watching a lot of my clips last year, something that I can, work on and improve. So that's something that, I've I've felt while I've been out there and want to continue to improve.
What do you think of Zach as your new receivers coach, and how has he challenged you so far?
He don't play that. He don't play that. So, you know, he's that coach that, you know, mediocrity. How do you say that word? I think that's the right word. Right. Mediocrity and him don't really mesh. So like, if you gonna just try to just come in and just cruise on through, nah, you can't. That ain't gonna happen. It's gonna be a clash because he's gonna get the best out of you. And you know, it kind of reminds me of college and how my coach Norvell was at the beginning, and you know, he was one that was he wanted the perfection every single day, and it got to the point where that's all we expected out of ourselves, walk through regardless. And you know, it'll be times now I'm out on the field, I'm thinking, oh shoot, my stance, just little stuff like that is that the stuff that he hones in on to just make a complete receiver room.
Much like we were just talking about, the details are important, and they're addressing them in the OTAs now on the offensive side of the ball. They're getting to these. They're hyper focusing on these points to get these down right. Roman Wilson, when we talked to him in rookie camp, he said, "Hey, I'm just trying to come out low and keep my arms pumping. I'm trying to get these things done." Zach Azzanni, from all intents and purposes, seems like he is pushing. He's pushing these players to try to get more out of them. He's trying to challenge them more often, and I think he's getting a response. Calvin Austin said, "You don't play that." You know, when it comes to the whole mediocrity thing, when it comes to all of the, to all of the challenges that people might associate with him at this point. It's like, oh man, maybe he's not up to speed. Oh, maybe he's just slower. Zach Azzanni doesn't have time for that, and I think it's a really good sign. I think the Steelers needed a wide receiver coach to kick these guys into an extra gear, especially George Pickens. I think George Pickens, I think if he gets it together and he avoids any bad headlines or injuries or things like that, I think George Pickens could take over the league. And I think Calvin Austin could be a very good player. And you heard him there talking about what he's been working on and everything. I think Calvin Austin could end up being ready, but Zach Azzanni, I'm intrigued to see how this continues with him. How does he continue to coach up the receivers? How does he push them? How does he challenge them? How does George Pickens respond to them in different points? I think all of that is very relevant for what the Steelers are trying to do at this point, because they need the run game to work. They need the physicality, but they also need their receivers to be able to make plays and to be part of, to find the most reliable ones there. And again, Calvin Austin, he's a 4th round pick from a couple years back. He's not guaranteed a roster spot. I think he'll get one. But he's not guaranteed, a major, a major role in this team just yet. But I do think Calvin Austin deserves a shot at it. I think that you've seen his talents, his speed, and everything that he can do. He can be a playmaker, and that's where Zach Azzanni is going to have to get the most out of him. Is trying to understand, hey, these are the things he does well. Let's put this in different formations to try to keep it hidden. What how you're going to best use Calvin Austin. Because maybe it is just put him in the seam, put him in the slot, let him run a streak, and just see who can run with him. Because he is a fast guy. But again, I think that what you see with a guy like Calvin Austin is he's taking this as opportunity very serious. He's working very hard at that, and I think that there's there's good to come from being that hard of a worker. When you're in professional football, especially, and I think that could be really interesting to see how he continues, to grow for the Steelers, because they need a number 2 wide receiver. They need a number 3 wide receiver. Could he be either one? Maybe. We'll find more about that out as we get closer to real training camp here. But all in all, I thought it was a very interesting first week of camp. We still have other clips from players that we will eventually play, but we're not playing right now because we have to get other things done. But there's still a lot to uncover with this team. There's still a lot to discover with this team, and I think that's all a good thing, because new elements to a team that needed a facelift, that needed an uplift on the offensive side of the ball. I think that these are all really positive signs that the Steelers are at least off and running to a good start here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Thanks to everyone for tuning into the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, breaking down your Pittsburgh Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.